The rain was hammering against the windows of our downtown Seattle apartment when everything fell apart. I remember staring at the droplets racing down the glass, thinking how they looked just like the tears I was trying so hard to hold back. Pack your things and get out. Those 6 words from my roommate Jordan still echo in my head. No explanation, no warning, just cold dismissal after 3 years of what I thought was friendship. I had been working late shifts at the coffee shop on Pine Street, barely making ends meet while trying to save for community college. The rent was always tight, but I thought we had each other's backs. Apparently I was wrong. But Jordan, I can have the rent by tomorrow. The tip jar was good today and I've got that catering gig this weekend, I pleaded, my voice cracking with desperation. Jordan wouldn't even look at me. It's not just about the rent, Sam. I'm done with this whole situation. My cousin needs a place and honestly you've been bringing the whole vibe down lately. The whole vibe down. 3 years of splitting grocery bills, staying up late watching old movies, helping each other through breakups and family drama, and I was just bringing the vibe down. I packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. My whole life fitting into 3 pieces of luggage felt pathetic. The rain had turned into a proper Pacific Northwest downpour by the time I stepped onto the sidewalk, my bags getting soaked within seconds. I stood there on 15th Avenue, water dripping from my hair, watching Jordan close the blinds without a backward glance. The city lights blurred through my tears and the rain, creating this kaleidoscope of loneliness that I'll never forget. My phone battery was at 12%, I had $43 in my checking account and nowhere to go. The coffee shop wouldn't open for another 8 hours, and I couldn't exactly sleep in Pike Place Market. I walked. That's all I could do. I walked through Capitol Hill, past all the places that used to feel like home. The vintage record store where Jordan and I would spend Sunday afternoons. The taco truck where we'd grab late-night food after particularly rough days. Every corner held a memory that now felt like a lie. The rain eventually stopped around midnight, but I was already soaked to the bone. I found myself in California Anderson Park, sitting on a bench under a streetlight, shivering and trying to figure out my next move. A few other people were scattered around the park, some clearly in similar situations to mine. The reality of homelessness was hitting me like a freight train. Hey, you okay over there? I looked up to see an older woman approaching. She was probably in her 50s, wearing a worn but clean jacket and carrying a thermos. Her name was Linda, and she'd been living rough for about 2 years after losing her job at Boeing. First night? She asked, sitting down beside me without invitation. I nodded, not trusting my voice. It's the worst one. I won't lie to you about that. But you've got something a lot of folks out here don't. What's that? I managed to croak out. You're angry. I can see it in your eyes. That anger is going to keep you warm tonight, and if you're smart, it's going to fuel something bigger. Linda shared some hot coffee from her thermos and told me about the resources downtown. The shelter on 3rd Avenue, the food bank at the church, the library where you could stay warm and use computers. But more than that, she shared something I didn't expect. Hope. 6 months ago there was this kid, maybe your age. Found him right here on this same bench, crying just like you. Today he's got his own food truck and hired 2 people. Life's funny like that. Sometimes you've got to lose everything to find out what you're really made of. I spent that first night on the bench, dozing fitfully between rain showers. Every time I woke up, Linda's words echoed in my head. What was I really made of? I was about to find out. As the sun started to rise over the Seattle skyline, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this break me. I was going to use it to build something better. I had 6 days before my next scheduled shift at the coffee shop. 6 days before I'd have to face the world pretending everything was normal. 6 days to figure out how to rise from this. The city was waking up around me, people heading to jobs and lives that suddenly seemed impossibly stable. I watched a businessman hurry past, talking on his phone about quarterly reports. A jogger ran by, earbuds in, focused on her morning routine. A food truck was setting up across the street, the owner methodically arranging his supplies. That food truck caught my attention. I watched the owner, a Latino man probably in his 30s, working with such purpose and pride. He wasn't just serving food, he was building something. Every movement was deliberate, every interaction with early morning customers was genuine. I realized I'd been thinking too small my whole life. Working for other people, depending on other people, letting other people decide my worth. Jordan had just done me the biggest favor of my life, even if it didn't feel that way sitting on that cold bench. By 7 a.m. I had a plan forming. It wasn't complete, it wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in hours I smiled. The rain started again, but this time I welcomed it. It was washing away the old Sam, The one who accepted crumbs and called it friendship? The one who played it safe and still ended up with nothing? I stood up from that bench, shouldered my damp backpack and walked toward downtown. I had work to do. The Seattle Central Library became my office, my sanctuary, and my planning headquarters all rolled into one. Those massive glass windows and that soaring architecture made me feel like I was part of something bigger than my current situation. I spent the entire second day researching food truck permits, business licenses, startup costs, successful food truck stories. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, noticed me there from opening to closing and started bringing me coffee from the staff room. "Research project?" she asked, glancing at my notebook filled with scribbled plans and calculations. "Life project," I replied, and she smiled knowingly. That evening, I swallowed my pride and called my sister Casey in Portland. We hadn't talked in months after a stupid argument about our dad's birthday party, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "Sam? Oh my God, where have you been? I've been worried sick." I broke down and told her everything. The eviction, the park bench, the plan that was forming in my head. Casey listened without judgment, which was exactly what I needed. "Come stay with me. You can have the couch until you figure things out," she offered immediately. "I can't run away from this, Casey. I need to fix it here in Seattle. But I could use a loan. Just enough to get started." There was silence on the other end. Casey was a nurse practitioner doing well for herself, but I knew money was still tight for everyone. "How much are we talking about?" I looked at my calculations. $3,000. "I know it's a lot, but I can pay you back with interest in 6 months. I have a solid plan." "Send me the plan. Let me look at it tonight." The third day was a blur of activity. I met with small business counselors at the Community Development Center, visited successful food trucks during their lunch rush, and started networking with other entrepreneurs. One food truck owner, Miguel, took me under his wing after I helped him during a crazy lunch rush at Westlake Park. "You've got the hustle," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But more important, you've got the hunger. Not for food, for success. I can see it." Miguel introduced me to his supplier, explained the permit process, and even offered to let me work his truck for a few days to learn the ropes. "Why would you help your future competition?" I asked. He laughed. "This city's big enough for all of us. Besides, I like your energy. Reminds me of myself 5 years ago," Casey called that evening. "I looked at your plan. It's ambitious, maybe a little crazy, but it's solid. I'm wiring you the money tomorrow morning." I almost cried right there in the library. "Casey, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me. Just prove to yourself that you're as strong as I know you are." Day 4 was permit day. I spent 8 hours in various government offices, filling out forms, getting inspections scheduled, and jumping through bureaucratic hoops. The health department inspector was particularly tough, but Miguel had prepared me well. "Most people give up at this stage," the inspector told me. "The paperwork alone scares them off. You sure you want to do this?" I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That night, sleeping on a cot at the shelter, I stared at the ceiling planning my menu. I wanted to do something unique but accessible, fancy enough to stand out but affordable enough for working people. Seattle fusion with a comfort food twist. The inspiration came from my own journey. Street food that told a story, that connected with people who were hustling just like I was. I decided on Korean-Mexican fusion with a Pacific Northwest twist. Kimchi tacos with locally sourced salmon. Bulgogi bowls with organic vegetables from Pike Place Market. Comfort food that reflected Seattle's diverse, hardworking spirit. Day 5 was equipment day. I found a used food truck through Miguel's connections. It needed work, but it had good bones and the price was right. The owner, retiring after 15 years, gave me advice over coffee. Location is everything. But more than that, consistency is everything. People need to know that when they come to your truck, they're going to get the same quality every single time. Build that trust and you'll build a business. I also hired my first employee. Carmen was working at a sandwich shop downtown but dreamed of restaurant experience. She had culinary school training but couldn't afford to work unpaid internships at fancy restaurants. We were both betting on each other. "I can't pay much at first," I warned her during our interview at a coffee shop in Pioneer Square. "I'm not looking for much at first. I'm looking for a chance to build something real," she replied. "Besides, I believe in the concept. This city needs more authentic fusion food." By the end of day 5, I had permits pending, equipment ordered, a partner hired, and a location scouted. The spot I wanted was outside the new tech building on 2nd Avenue, perfect foot traffic during lunch hours. But more than that, I had something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. Every morning I woke up excited about the work ahead. Every challenge felt like a puzzle to solve rather than an obstacle to overcome. I called Jordan that evening. Not to gloat or to anger but to thank him. "Thank you?" Jordan sounded confused. "Sam, I thought you'd be furious with me." "I was. For about a day. But you did me the biggest favor of my life. You forced me to stop settling." There was a long pause. "I heard from someone that you're starting a food truck." "That's incredible." "It is incredible. And I never would have done it if you hadn't kicked me out of my comfort zone." We talked for an hour. Jordan apologized for the way he handled things and I genuinely forgave him. Anger was heavy and I needed to travel light for this journey. Day 6 was prep day. Carmen and I spent 12 hours getting the truck ready, testing recipes, working out systems. The health inspector came by for the final check and actually complimented our setup. "This is one of the most organized new operations I've seen," she said, stamping our permit approval. "You two clearly know what you're doing." That evening, as I prepped vegetables for the next day's grand opening, I thought about Linda from the park. I wondered if she'd come by for lunch. I wanted to thank her for that first night's wisdom. Carmen caught me staring out the truck window at the Seattle skyline. "Nervous about tomorrow?" "Terrified," I admitted. "But the good kind of terrified. The kind that means you're doing something that matters." She smiled. "My grandmother always said that butterflies in your stomach mean you're about to fly." I looked around the truck we'd built together, smelled the prep work for tomorrow's menu, felt the weight of the keys in my pocket. 6 days ago I was homeless and hopeless. Tomorrow I was opening my own business. The city lights twinkled like promises outside our windows. Tomorrow would tell us if we were ready to keep them. I barely slept the night before opening day. Every sound in the shelter seemed amplified, every worry magnified. By 4 a.m. I gave up trying to sleep and headed to the truck to start prep. Carmen was already there, her hair tied back, ingredients laid out like a surgeon's tools. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked with a grin. "Too excited? Or too terrified? Maybe both." We worked in comfortable silence for the first hour, the rhythm of chopping vegetables and prepping proteins almost meditative. The city was still quiet, just the occasional delivery truck rumbling past our setup location on 2nd Avenue. What if nobody comes? I voiced the fear that had been eating at me. Carmen stopped chopping and looked at me seriously. "Then we'll figure out why and fix it." "But Sam, look at this food. Smell these flavors. People are going to come." By 10 a.m. we were ready. The truck looked professional, the menu boards were perfect, and our signature kimchi salmon tacos smelled incredible. I had invested everything in this moment, not just Casey's loan, but every ounce of hope I had left. Our first customer was a construction worker from the building site across the street. "Y'all new?" he asked, looking at our menu. "Brand new." "First day," I replied, trying to keep the nervousness out of my voice. "I'll try one of them salmon tacos then. Support local business." I prepared his order with shaking hands, layering the perfectly grilled salmon, crispy kimchi and house-made sauce on a warm tortilla. Carmen plated it beautifully and handed it over. The construction worker took one bite and his eyes widened. "Holy smokes. This is incredible. What's that flavor?" "Korean-style fermented vegetables with Pacific Northwest salmon and a little secret sauce," Carmen explained proudly. "Well, your secret's safe with me but not from my crew." "Hey guys," he shouted to his co-workers. "You gotta try this." Within 20 minutes, we had a line of construction workers, office employees and curious passers-by. The lunch rush hit us like a tidal wave, and we moved like a machine we'd been operating for years instead of hours. "Order up. Bulgogi bowl with extra kimchi," Carmen called out, sliding the steaming bowl across our service window. "2 salmon tacos and a soul-searching bowl." I responded, already starting the next order. The feedback was immediate and incredible. People were taking photos of their food, posting on social media, calling their friends. By 1 p.m., the line was stretching around the corner. That's when I saw Linda approaching, the woman from the park who had given me coffee and hope on my first night. She was waiting patiently in line, and when she reached the window, she smiled broadly. "Well, look at you," she said proudly. "I told you that anger would fuel something bigger." "Linda, your lunch is on the house. What would you like?" "Surprise me. I trust your judgment." I made her our signature bowl with extra care, adding all the best ingredients. When I handed it to her, she just shook her head in amazement. 6 days. From that park bench to this. How does it feel?" "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I answered truthfully. The afternoon crowd was different from lunch. Food bloggers who'd seen the social media buzz, downtown workers grabbing early dinner, families exploring the area. Each customer taught us something new about our operation, our timing, our portions. Around 3 p.m., a woman in an expensive suit approached the truck. She looked official, maybe city government, and my heart started racing. Were we about to get shut down? "Are you the owner?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "So, is there a problem?" She smiled. "No problem at all. I'm Jennifer from the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. We've been tracking new small businesses, and your social media presence exploded today. Mind if I try your food?" I prepared our best bowl for her, hands steady now with confidence instead of shaking with fear. Jennifer took her time eating, making notes on her phone. "This is exceptional. Really exceptional. We're always looking for success stories to highlight Seattle's entrepreneurial spirit. Would you be interested in being featured in our small business spotlight?" I looked at Carmen, who was grinning so wide I thought her face might crack. "We'd be honored." As the day wound down, we counted our receipts with disbelief. We'd served over 200 customers, sold out of 3 menu items, and taken in more money in one day than I used to make in 2 weeks at the coffee shop. But more than the money was the feeling. Every customer who complimented our food, every person who said they'd be back tomorrow, every smile across our service window felt like validation that we'd built something real. "We need to talk about tomorrow," Carmen said as we cleaned down the truck. "We're going to need more prep time, more ingredients, maybe even more help during rush." "Good problems to have," I replied, wiping down the grill with satisfaction. Miguel stopped by as we were finishing cleanup. "I heard through the food truck network that you crushed it today. How many customers?" "Over 200, Carmen answered proudly. Miguel whistled. "That's incredible for day one. Most trucks are lucky to hit 50 customers in their first week. You two found something special." As I locked up the truck for the night, I pulled out my phone and called Casey. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "Case, I think we might actually make it. Today was incredible. We had lines, people loved the food, even the city wants to feature us." I could hear the smile in her voice. "I never doubted it." "Well, maybe I doubted it a little, but you proved me right to believe in you." That night at the shelter felt different. I wasn't just sleeping there because I had nowhere else to go. I was sleeping there because I was saving every penny to grow my business. It was a choice now, not a circumstance. The man in the cot next to mine, Tony, had watched me leave early and come back late for the past week. "You're that food truck guy everyone's talking about, aren't you? You heard about us? My daughter works downtown. She posted a picture of your food on Instagram. Said it was the best lunch she'd had in months. Made me proud, seeing someone from here making it." As I lay in bed that night, I thought about how much had changed in just 6 days. From hopeless to hopeful, from dependent to independent, from victim to victor. But the most important change was internal. I wasn't the same person who got kicked out of that apartment. I was stronger, more focused, more grateful for every opportunity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I fell asleep planning our next menu additions and dreaming about the permanent restaurant I'd open someday. The rain tapped against the shelter windows like applause, and for the first time in years, I was excited about what tomorrow would bring. 3 months later, I was standing in the kitchen of my own restaurant, watching the final touches being put on what had started as an impossible dream just 90 days earlier. The food truck had been successful beyond our wildest projections. Within a month, we had regular customers who planned their lunch around our location. Food bloggers were featuring us weekly. The mayor's office feature had led to a segment on the local morning show, which had led to catering requests, which had led to this. Soul Kitchen, our permanent restaurant in Fremont. "Sam, the health inspector is here for the final walkthrough," Carmen called from the dining room. She was now my business partner, not just an employee. Success had a way of clarifying who belonged where. The inspector was the same woman who had approved our food truck, and she walked through our kitchen with obvious pride. "This is quite an evolution from that truck 3 months ago. Same attention to detail, but on a much larger scale." The restaurant could seat 60 people with an open kitchen concept that let customers watch us work. The design was industrial chic with warm touches, reclaimed wood tables and local art on the walls. It felt like Seattle, but with Korean and Mexican influences woven throughout. "Nervous about tonight?" Carmen asked as we did our final prep for the opening dinner. "Different kind of nervous than the food truck," I admitted. "That was about survival. This is about growth." The reservations had filled up within hours of announcing our opening. Food bloggers, loyal truck customers, local business owners, even some city officials. But the reservation I was most excited about was the table for 2 at 7 p.m. under the name Linda. She arrived exactly on time, wearing a clean dress and accompanied by a man I assumed was a boyfriend or husband. But when they approached the host stand, I realized it was her son, visiting from California. Linda. I rushed over to greet them personally. You look incredible. She did look incredible. In the 3 months since our first meeting, she'd found stable housing through a program downtown and was working part-time at a community center. Success had a ripple effect, and seeing her thriving made my own achievements feel even more meaningful. This is my son Michael, she said proudly. I told him all about meeting you that first night and following your journey. He wanted to see what all the fuss was about. I seated them at the best table in the house and personally prepared their meal. Our signature tasting menu showcased everything we'd learned about balancing flavors, textures, and presentation. Each dish told part of the story of how we'd gotten here. The evening was a blur of satisfied customers, perfect service, and food that exceeded even my own expectations. But the moment that made it all worthwhile came when Linda's son approached me near the end of the evening. My mom talks about you like your family, he said. She says meeting you reminded her that it's never too late to rebuild. She's applied to community college to finish her degree. I looked over at Linda, who was chatting with Carmen about her plans to volunteer with other homeless individuals, helping them navigate resources and find hope. The circle was completing itself. Around 10 p.m., as the last customers were finishing their meals, Jordan walked in. I hadn't seen him since our phone conversation months earlier, and I felt a moment of awkwardness before remembering how grateful I was for the push he'd inadvertently given me. Sam, this place is incredible, he said, looking around with genuine admiration. I've been following your journey on social media, but seeing it in person is amazing. Want to try the tasting menu? It's on the house. We sat at the bar and talked while Carmen supervised the kitchen cleanup. Jordan told me about his own struggles since I'd moved out, how he'd realized that pushing people away when things got tough was a pattern for him. I was scared, he admitted. Scared of my own money problems, scared of depending on anyone, scared of being vulnerable. Kicking you out was easier than admitting I needed help too. We were both struggling, I replied. The difference is you gave me a reason to stop struggling and start fighting. Over Korean fried chicken and bulgogi sliders, we rebuilt our friendship on a foundation of honesty instead of convenience. Jordan had started therapy and was working on his commitment issues. I had started a business and discovered my own resilience. I have something to tell you, Jordan said as we finished eating. I'm thinking about investing in small businesses. Local entrepreneurs who need a leg up. Would Soul Kitchen be interested in expansion capital? I almost choked on my drink. You want to invest in US? I want to invest in you. In people who don't give up when life knocks them down. You turn getting kicked out into getting kicked up. The irony wasn't lost on either of us and we both started laughing. 6 months ago he'd kicked me out with nothing. Tonight he was offering to help me expand with something. As the evening wound down, I stood in my restaurant kitchen, surrounded by my team, looking out at the empty dining room where so many people had shared our food and our story. Carmen was planning tomorrow's specials. Our new line cook was cleaning the grill with the same pride I'd felt on that first food truck morning. Our server was counting tips and talking about culinary school. We weren't just serving food, we were building dreams, creating opportunities, proving that setbacks could become setups for comebacks. I pulled out my phone and called Casey like I did every night. How was opening night? She asked immediately. Perfect. Better than perfect. Case, I want to pay you back early with interest. Keep the money and open another location instead. Portland could use a Soul Kitchen. That night I didn't go back to the shelter. I had rented a small apartment in Fremont, walking distance from the restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, earned through my own work and determination. As I lay in my own bed, in my own place, with my own business thriving 6 blocks away, I thought about the journey from that park bench to this moment. Every challenge had been a lesson, every setback had been a setup, every closed door had led to a better one opening. The rain started again, that familiar Seattle percussion against my windows. But this time it sounded like possibility instead of despair, like growth instead of tears, like the soundtrack to a life I had built with my own hands and my own heart. 6 days had changed everything. But it was what I did with those 6 days that made the difference. I had learned that strength isn't about never falling down, it's about how quickly you get back up and how much you grow in the process. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove that getting kicked out like I was nothing had actually been the beginning of everything. And I couldn't wait to see what we'd build next.